I got a little worried until I heard that introduction. You know, they said it when we got the email. They said no bluegrass. So we've been spending weeks on our rock and roll set here. But luckily we got a few tunes up our sleeve I think we can take care of. So a little history of bluegrass, just so folks know. You know, bluegrass is like one of the original American music. So a lot of the music came from Irish and Scottish fiddlers, and a lot of music passed down from England. A lot of those folks settled in the Appalachia in the southern United States, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia. And so a lot of those tunes were kind of converted into what was called mountain music or Appalachian music. Eventually, some of the style progressed a little bit, and we had folks like Bill Monroe, who was from Kentucky, kind of define the style. And what kind of changed it from like old world fiddle tunes and from even old time mountain music was the fact that each instrument would take a turn. So it's almost like passing around the basketball. Each person gets to try a melody or to improvise over a melody, and you kind of take turns while the rest of the folks will play like a rhythm structure. So that's kind of one of the defining features of bluegrass. So listen for that a little bit. And we'll kick this off with a Bill Monroe tune here. And we'll get Joe to pick it, because this is what Bill Monroe played. His instrument was a mandolin.
Yeah,
that's
mandolins used to not look always like this, but Bill Monroe sort of made this style famous right here. The F-style mandolins, just like the one he played. Now it's the standard. Uh-oh. That's Miles. Blue. He's super great. Hopefully he stays super great out there.
What's this one called, Joe?
Pike County Breakdown. Oh no, what are we doing? Daybreak and Dixie.
Yeah, do Daybreak.
That's a better one for us, I think.
That's how old Bill sort of would have done it.
Nice and chunky like that. This is your key to happy.
We do have a few other folks that are in the band. We're missing our stand-up bass player, Dan McClung. He's off at the music store, Music Makers, doing a little work. We also have Dale Largent as our percussion player. He ends up adding a new element to the bluegrass style, a little more newgrass. We kept it as a little trio tonight. We'll kind of feature a couple of the instruments though, and kind of tell about some of the classic players of the style. This next song's really fun one. If you're ever learning guitar, maybe you've tried it before. And it was written by Maybelle Carter. The Carter family was in like eastern Tennessee, Johnson City, and there was a recording studio there, and they would call folks out from the hill for their recording sessions as recording and radios became popular and more wideband radios could reach all through the South. And so you could go in and sing into the can, right, and record your songs. And the Carter family wrote just really lots and lots of songs. There was A.P. Carter and his two daughters, Maybelle and June. Okay? And Maybelle, she wrote this one, and it's kind of unique to the style of flat picking. That's what you do on the guitar. You use your little flat pick here. You hear kind of a bass melody. This is called the Wildwood Flower. I'll go like this. Stuff right there. So if you're ever learning guitar, that's kind of a good one to kind of get your hands around a little bit, learn the old Wildwood Flower.
That's how I test this for if I'm going to go buy one in the store. See how Wildwood sounds on the Gitbox.
Nice. That's a good one. So let's see. Let's move on. What we got to do a little singing at this point. That's another kind of major style. A lot of actually African American gospel and blues influenced a lot of the singing that happened in bluegrass music, creating 2, 3-part and oftentimes 4-part harmony was one of the characteristics vocally of the musical style. And I believe a lot of that kind of came from, everybody went to church back then, especially in the South, so a lot of folks just grew up singing, and it was very much a part of the culture when you didn't have TV or even radio perhaps, in the mountains. So your Friday, Saturday night entertainment was often playing music with your friends or going, to see some music somewhere. And so you know, the singing played a lot larger role in just entertainment and fun back then than even it does kind of these days, I think. So we'll sing you a little, this one's kind of fun. I'll do a little Love Come Home, a little medium tempo here. There's a lot of bluegrass standards too. That's what's fun about bluegrass. It's kind of a, it's folk music. It's kind of easy to play. You know, it sounds hard sometimes, but you know, disguised in there, there's a simple chord progression and often a simple melody that you can really just be creative and do a lot of fun stuff with, you know. So this might be just one of the standards, you can call it, like the bluegrass jam. And this one's called Love Come Home. If you read this letter that I write to you, sweetheart, I hope you'll understand. You're the only love I knew. Please forgive me if you can. Sweetheart, I beg you to come home now. I'm so blue and all alone. Promise that I'll treat you right. Love, love, please come home. That old wind is coming slowly creeping round, and my husband alone. Slow his cut of the ground, and your baby's hungry skin cold. Sweetheart, baby, to come home tonight. I'm so blue and all alone. Promise that I'll treat you right. Love, love, please come home. Lots of fun songs like that. A couple 3 chords and you're just having a blast. Let's do another one here. That, you know, another defining feature of bluegrass music, of course, everyone's favorite instrument. Nobody sees the rest of the band because there's the fiddle player. Over here we got Jenny Wasson on the fiddle. Violin. Some folks ask, you know, what's the difference, Jenny? So are you playing a violin or a fiddle? So what do you think?
You can spill whiskey on a fiddle.
That's the big difference. Your fiddle's whiskey soaked. At least
Wine
the
on
licks
a
and the music
violin.
are for sure. Now there are some, you'll hear that characteristic kind of double stop sound of the fiddle sometimes. You know? Yeah.
There was a lot of fiddle players that really progressed bluegrass music, from Kenny Baker, who played a lot with Bill Monroe. Like almost 25 years, I think he was with that band. The Chubby Wise, Bobby Hicks, and we're going to play a song by one of the best, Vassar Clemens, called Lonesome Fiddle Blues.
What else do you see on there?
I see some banjo tunes.
Oh yeah, here we go. We'll kind of keep on track. We'll get
Oh, that's the
Joe.
banjo, hey?
We'll get Joe to play a little guitar here for us. As we continue on our little bluegrass journey here, you know, bluegrass isn't bluegrass unless you get the banjo in here. Really, the rest of it. This is the only thing that can maybe do true battle with the fiddle. The fiddle always wins, but the banjo player is usually the butt of many more jokes. But the jealousy runs deep. Now, the funny thing, though, about the banjo, and the reason it does get so many people joke about it, is because you just have to be a miracle worker to get them in tune. And, of course, you get into the song a little bit. Things definitely get real spicy. You got the banjo, right? So anyway, anybody who's the greatest banjo player ever? Anybody who knows? Anybody? Somebody knows. Earl Scruggs, right? He kind of developed the 3-finger style. Of course, folks have been doing it a little bit before him, but he truly mastered the art and kind of had the defining songs of the style. So he's pretty much the man. Everybody loves Earl. But for the banjo, he would always use a thumb pick and 2-finger picks. They call it 3-finger banjo. And let's see, what else is cool about the banjo? This is actually cited as one of the only, truly American instruments, Violin having maybe more, French and Spanish heritage, guitar as well. But the banjo, came from a lot of, African slaves, really, playing music on plantations. And the banjo is actually quite popular before the guitar. The guitar gets all the glory these days, the lead singer, the guitar. But really, before electricity, when a lot of this music happened, you needed a lot of volume because you were playing in pubs or maybe you're in an orchestra. God forbid there was a really orchestra of banjos. But there was. You notice they're not very popular these days. Here we are. The banjo jokes have already started. I haven't even played a note. But what's unique about this is the 5th string. I think it was in the 1820s or so. It's a fellow from Virginia, Sweeney. He put the 5th string on the banjo, so you get this high, often a drone string. So here's the lowest pitch is the 4th. And that it kind of was really suited to the bluegrass style, So we'll try and play one of Earl's famous tunes. Probably, I think it was the theme song for Bonnie and Clyde, the movie. I think, right? Foggy Mountain Breakdown. Here, we'll try it out. You can help me out on the guitar. I think it's in tune. Quick. tunes, that'd be kind of, they call it Foggy Mountain breakdown. You know, breakdown's usually short, hot, and fast, because the banjo doesn't stay in tune very long. So you're just that's going to tune up real quick here. There was a reason for that. This is where the other band, you know, starts telling, while I'm tuning, the banjo jokes come out again. There's plenty of room for that. So if anybody has any good banjo jokes, no? Okay. I must have done pretty good on that song. All right, you want to do one more? This one's actually, you know, this is another classic that you kind of learn on banjo. It's one of the first times. Earl did this one too. Let's see. You see me grabbing all my little toys now too. I got my capo, often called the capo, mispronounced. And then I tightened up the strings. So now we're in the key of A, which is the kind of fiddle players like this tune, because this is actually an old fiddle tune, more so adapted, and it's called Cripple Creek. So I'll give it a little this. Cripple Creek.
That was a fast version.
Was that fast?
That's good.
I can only go one speed. Well, you hung in there, even on my crazy ending. That's the fun thing about playing bluegrass. It's like a team sport. And it's like always on the edge of a turnover, fumble. You're just like, hang on. But as you play more and more, you kind of start, you know, the play call.
That's right. That's right.
It's kind of fun. We don't even talk, but I know exactly what you're doing. Let's see, nobody's gotten too mad yet, so I'll do one more of these banjo tunes. But of course, I shouldn't have taken my capo off. This was another folk. Who did this one? Del McCurry. He's one of my favorites. Anybody heard of Del McCurry?
Yep.
He's still alive and kicking these days. He had two sons who also play mandolin and banjo. You know, and that's where you really get the great singing, when people have the same genes. They sure can sing good. Of course, these guys are some of the best in bluegrass, and but this was one of the songs that made him super famous, I guess, in the bluegrass world. And it's
He was a bluegrass boy now, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. That was the Bluegrass Boys were Bill Monroe, his original band from Kentucky, and that's kind of where the name came from, bluegrass, from the Kentucky state of bluegrass, and Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys. And so yeah, Del played guitar and sang with him for quite a while before forming his own band.
What did they call it before that then? Just old timey music? Or?
You know, it's kind of took, you didn't just like start all of a sudden. It probably had been around and kind of morphed from old time and mountain music and even country music, you know. There was kind of a lot of interplay between all those styles. I even think like the Carters, you know, the Carter family, they get cited in the country music world quite a bit too. There's a whole lot of crossover going on there. And then, yeah, more of these instrumentals and, you know, passing of the breaks and the melodies help define that style, and as well as the singing, you know.
His band was probably one of the first that really clearly did all of that. I mean, his band was a brand new sound.
Mm-hmm. It was a new sound.
Even though it was taken from all the others, right? It was the first time anyone heard that. All those fast melodies and taking, clear turns.
Mm-hmm. I think it was truly for a lot of people when Bill Monroe had Earl Scruggs in the band was maybe like the epitome of the full bluegrass sound once you added the banjo, because the banjo, 5-string banjo's not really like that old. Everybody, but it definitely like the style is clearly defined, and I think once you added that high lonesome bluegrass sound and singing and mandolin of Bill Monroe with Kenny Baker, and then you add in
Put the guitar in the background.
Lester Flatt, he would play guitar, right? Give us a G run real quick. There we go. There's a little G run. That's Lester Flatt. He's one of Earl Scruggs' guitar players. So once you got those guys together, the book was pretty much written. You know, we've all been trying ever since to catch up, but we're still getting there. This one was Dell and the boys, though. High on the mountain. I'll go like this. At the valleys down below, they were green just as far as I could see. As my memory returned, oh how my heart did yearn for you and the days it used to be. Well, I'm high on the mountain, wind blowing free, thinking mountain days. Bit of the banjo. Thanks, Earl. Let's see what else we got here.
You want to do the dobro too?
Yeah, let's do that. Why don't we do that? Here's like one.
Play some guitar.
Yeah, play that guitar again for me, and I'll do this little crazy thing. This was kind of added kind of after we had the fiddle. This may be in the last edition of the full bluegrass band, would be called, a lot of folks know it as the dobro. And it's a type of resonator guitar. Dobro was actually like a brand name of guitars, dobro. They were two brothers, Dopera brothers, and so now everybody thinks of it as a dobro. But they trademarked that, so watch out. So they also call them resonator guitars. Again, right before electricity. Before electricity, everything was just dandy, huh? You sat on the porch picking all day. But this was one of those things where they tried to make a guitar louder. You know, it'd be hard if you're playing in the pub or so. It's hard to hear. So you'd want your instrument to really project. And so that's what these were. They were right before the electric guitar came out. And then that pretty much bluegrass, last nail in the coffin for that once the electric guitar came around. But that's why they call this a resonator guitar. There's a little cone made of aluminum that's in there. It's like spun. It looks like a speaker in your stereo. And they drop that in your box just like a guitar. And then these two, you play them on like your lap or standing up like this. And so you use it's a little piece of metal, tone bar. They used to use like sockets. Maybe an old medicine bottle would be used.
Yeah.
And then you kind of use the picks, kind of like that 3-finger banjo style. This one's tuned, like the banjo is cool too, just like this. It's tuned to the chord G. Look how easy that is. I'm going to give away all the secrets tonight. You getting this on video? I'm going to dump them all. Now watch what Joe has to do for G. Doesn't that make your fingers hurt? What I got to do. It's pretty good. But here, let's do that. We'll see how hard the dobro is compared to the guitar.
Before you play that, one question about the dobro. It looks like your strings are way off the neck.
They certainly are. This is just, it's a slide instrument. So I slide the metal bar across top. They never actually depress to the fingerboard. And that's a little bit what's kind of cool. When Joe plays his, he has to press real hard. You gotta be muscular. And you gotta press really hard. But on the dobro, you know, you just simply, you slide the bar around. And it never touches the neck. So those little markers that you see there are really just for my eyes, so I can figure out where I am on this crazy thing. It's got a great little sound to it. Now that's the other thing it's tough about though, because if you're off a little bit, it's going to be a little out of tune. So that is maybe kind of the one thing that's a little tougher about playing a slide instrument like this. It's kind of like the fiddle. You know, there's no frets or these little metal things that break the string over. So you have to really kind of listen to find out right where your note is going to be. You hear it a lot in country and in swing music and stuff as well. Here we'll do, this is no like classic one here. I'll do it with a little waltz. See, I bet you guys know what this is. I'll go like this. bass on there. Of course, the party never really starts until the bass steps in. You're having a good time, but when the bass comes, we'll get Joe to play that big old thing. The bass fiddle. That one's only 3/4 size, believe it or not. You know about the old bass, Joe.
It's tough.
It's tough. Yeah, it looks tough.
This one's not that old. I bought it brand new. Not too long ago.
Looks like it takes a carving.
But we've been through some things.
Of course, you have to have a special car to drive around.
It's the star of the Bluegrass festivals, though. Always new things.
You have the bass in your campsite, everyone comes to jam with you.
Yeah, the bass may be the easiest to play, but
Thanks.
yeah. Hey, I set down my banjo, so I'm free.
The dobro.
Yeah. The worst thing about though is like the first couple times is the blister you can get playing this thing. Before you know it.
It's true. It's rough on the fingers.
Let's see, what do you want to pick here? Why don't we do that Blue Railroad Train with me? That'd be a fun one, huh?
Sure.
You know how to play that on the bass.
We'll find out.
I gave away all the secrets of the dobro, so. I got way too many of that.
I got some dots on mine here.
Here's a fun one. Anybody heard of the legendary Doc Watson? Of course, Doc. He grew up in the rural South there near Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and amazing, blind almost since birth, but ended up being one of the true pioneers of like flat picking guitar. Could play really fast. Still can play faster than all the young bucks, even though I passed away, right? And then, but he would also do this finger picking, which was always kind of fun. So we always try and throw in a couple finger pickers. It really changes up the sound of the guitar. Still use my thumb pick, and I got my fingers, so we'll go like this. And the bass. Well, folks, you guys have any other questions? You know, kept the music rolling along. We hope we gave you a little bit of insight in how this crazy stuff is done. We do recommend that everybody, young or old, you better start picking soon because it's the funnest game you'll ever play. It's got a few rules, not too many, but once you got it, it's better than any card game besides cribbage.
The resonator guitar, is that the same as a National?
National was another brand, and they would make multiple styles of resonator guitars. You know, it's a whole grouping of guitars. Some of the resonators are steel body,
Yes.
all steel, sometimes copper or nickel or brass, super heavy, and you'll use those a lot in like blues. You see that in like a lot of Delta blues music, you know, and you would play more like, it wouldn't have a square neck. You would play it more like this, and you'd maybe use a bottleneck slide. You know, you might hear like some old blues players kind of in that style. This one was more kind of, and the tunings on some of those might be different. That's the fun thing about these resonator guitars is there's many tunings, you know. Guitars in kind of a standard tuning where I can use a lot of different chords and play in many keys. But instruments like the banjo and the dobro use like open tunings where you tune it to a chord like we talked about. So in bluegrass, they generally tune it to the key of G. Everybody loves the key of G in bluegrass. You know, thousands of songs are in the key of G, so that one's nice. You can use some other tunings and such though too. But there are a lot of different styles of resonators. This one has one cone, sometimes they have 3 cones in there. But they do a little different use though, depending on your like musical style that you're looking for. This one's pretty twangy, like that. Well, why don't we wrap it up with one more for you guys, unless there's any other question or anything. We hope you enjoyed it. What do you got there?
Where do you perform?
Our next gig is actually in Sisters at the Belfry on St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, our band is Moon Mountain Ramblers. Let's see, we've been a band 12, 13 years or so. We're working on a new album, so we've been in the studio a lot over the winter. So we should have that out. We're kind of aiming for June. We got a website, moonmountainramblers.com, of course, and then
At the moment, we're kind of holding off because of that. We got the album coming out. We want to make sure that we have a big bash when it comes out, so we're trying not to plan it right now. Trying to get the album done in time, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, we're kind of, you know, we've always done a lot of things ourselves. We record our own music, we write the music, we engineer the music, you mix it, so we try and see the process like fully through, you know, as opposed to like going into a studio or paying for the time, you know. We got a lot of skills within our group, and so we try and utilize those skills the best we can, and you know, we've learned a lot over the years. I think this will be like our 4th album or so. So, you know, trucking along. I think this is going to be our best one. We've kind of come a long way in those 12, 13 years as players and individuals, and also as like a group, you know. Keeping a group together for that long is like probably the biggest challenge, you know. How many bands have broken up before? Even the best bands, you know. And but you know, we always knew we enjoyed playing together, and we love living in Bend. I mean, couldn't be much better. So, you know, Jenny's originally from here, and I know Joe's from Alaska. I'm from Tennessee, and you know, the West is best. No offense. But just love living here, and it's great. And so yeah, we have practice Tuesday, Thursday. We gig on the weekends. You can check our website. We played all over before. We have a great live CD from the Tower Theater when we played there a few years back with our release. I think some of that movie or some of those songs you can even check out here at the library. I think so. Yeah.
And we all teach at String Theory Music. There's some brochures back there. We teach fiddle, guitar, mandolin, bass, whatever you want to learn.
Yeah, ukulele's been real popular for the folk blues stuff.
What are national groups that are hot that you have a lot of respect for that we ought to listen to?
If you haven't heard and or seen, I've mentioned before, Dell and the Boys, Dell McCurry. If you haven't seen them, they are so good. A lot of that old time bluegrass music, you know, they would have a single mic, you know, that would kind of pick up the whole sound of the whole stage, as opposed to like these days everybody plugs their instruments in, or there's tons of equipment, but back in the day there was just a single mic, so they do it in an old style, but whoo, they're really good. Get up close and see Dell and the Boys. You know, Jenny just went to Wintergrass is a
It's this
bluegrass
weekend.
festival. Oh, it's this weekend. So that's every year is Wintergrass, you know, West Coast Bluegrass Festival up in Tacoma.
Bellevue now.
Bellevue. Who's playing there?
Seldom Seen
Oh, yeah,
is
classic.
playing. Oh, you're putting me on the spot now. Noam Piccone.
Peter Rowan, maybe.
I don't know if he's.
One of Joe's huge influences playing the mandolin is another progressive mandolin player, David Grisman. I know he's played at the Tower and played here before, but he's more of like a progressive bluegrass style, which incorporates Latin and jazz and maybe a little more jam influence, but really, really good. So you got to check out Grisman.
Chris Steele just took over the, what's it called?
Perry Home.
Yeah, the Punch Brothers, those guys are the most innovative.
Yeah, those guys are like robots from another planet.
What do you guys think of like a crossover bluegrass to progressive? John Hartford.
Oh yeah, he's like the mega classic. He definitely kind of funny. John Hartford wrote "George on My Mind." If you've heard that song, made him ultra famous. But after Glenn Campbell and such. But yeah, John Hartford was a great fiddle, banjo player. He would clog and play fiddle at the same time, really bringing some of those old-time elements from Appalachia, kind of keeping them alive and present.
Illinois.
There you go. Yes, I got to see him in Atlanta once. That was really good. John Hartford.
I have a question about the culture in Appalachia,
Sure.
Tennessee. When a bluegrass band is going to play, for example, on a Saturday night, and you get a crowd like this in it, are we going to sit and listen to the music, or are the chairs going to be moved and it becomes sort of like a barn dance?
You know, it could go either way. It depends what crowd you're running with that particular night, you know, and maybe what age group as well, you know. A lot of it, you know, you can go to, when I lived down there, we'd go to contra dances all the time. And it wasn't necessarily bluegrass music, but then there would be like, you know, set dances, but always a kind of a tasty fiddle band kind of playing along. You know, some of the stuff is like when you see Dell and the boys, a lot of people sit and watch because like visually it's quite entertaining. You know, but if it's a pub, there are no rules in the pub on Saturday night, you know, so you never know who's going to get up on the table. So it depends. It goes both ways, you know. Some bands are really traditional and they'll play at the festivals and stuff, but you're always playing bar gigs. I mean, you're a musician, so you're doing weddings, you're doing all sorts of family events, you know, all sorts of stuff, so it can really vary.
Also, your overalls.
Oh, did you see these bad boys?
So, at a barn dance, or where the bluegrass is playing, are people going to wear Sunday go to meeting clothes? Or
Well,
are
I
they
think
gonna
it
wear
goes
overalls?
both ways. You know, like I keep citing down the boys, they run a pretty traditional style, as well as Bill Monroe, where all the band members wore suits, and you had a hat, and then, you know, if you didn't show up with your hat, Bill wasn't like known as being like ultra friendly sometimes, you know, and so you know, so there were some strict rules with as far as how you dressed a little bit in that bluegrass style. Yeah, I personally have a thing against suits. You know, I promised myself I would never get a suit, so I'm sticking to it. Jenny thought I was going to wear one tonight, but look what I showed up in.
Wear a bluegrass outfit.
You know, it's also a down-home, you know, mountain folk kind of music. So even I think in the formal setting, it still has a casual edge to it. You know, it's I really think it's just meant for it to be fun and to feel good, and you know, it doesn't seem like, you know, folks would really matter either way. You know, of course, if it was that Sunday morning gospel scene, you know, you might put your tie on.
I think I just heard where a country western guy went over and played in Arabia. Was it bluegrass song?
Yeah, it was the Hen House Prowlers, I think, as I heard that. They played here a couple times. We saw them play. They're fantastic. Yeah, and I caught some of that. That was kind of cool, especially since they don't allow music, which sounds like a little odd, but it's true. No like public performance. We'd be out of a job.
Is the bluegrass song spreading through Europe?
I think Europeans are drawn to anything American for sure, and always have been. Talking to other bluegrass bands that have gone there, I think you're really well received, and they definitely like that sound, that style. You know, the banjo, I mean, everybody loves the banjo. Now, I think it's really well received all over the world. There's actually some bluegrass bands from Europe, and I mean, they sound like they're from Kentucky or something. You know, they're like really good. You're like, wow. But then you hear them talk, and they're like, it's Swedish.
I got a question about the guitar.
Sure.
I've heard about the dreadnought style body.
Oh, sure.
What about the body styles on the guitars? I mean, does it vary a lot? Martin is the famous guitar maker, of course.
Yeah. A dreadnought is a guitar body shape. You know, if a lot of people think, oh, guitar comes in one size, but there's all sorts of different sizes. There's four main body types really, and this one is the dreadnought. And in the early 1900s, as you know, banjos were being put in the closet. God bless them. And people started playing more guitars, you know, because it has a nice, warm, sweet tone, and you can accompany yourself real well as a solo performer on a guitar, you know. But most of them, they call them parlor guitars. They're kind of small because you play them in the parlor, and they're real small body guitars, easy to hold. But as you, again, played out in public, you needed more projection. So as in like the 20s, they came up with bigger and bigger guitars. You know, every year the guitar companies would battle at who had the biggest guitar because you needed more volume and projection essentially. And so in the, you know, the 20s and 30s, Martin, amongst others, came up with a body shape called the dreadnought, which was named after a British naval battleship. You know, I don't know, like battleship has lots to do with guitar. Sounded sturdy, I guess, is the one thing. And so that's this body size as a dreadnought. So you get the projection, and you get kind of a nice loud bass. You know, like earlier in the program, a lot of bluegrass bands, you didn't have a bass player. But somebody has to play the bass. So you can hear that's where like a Martin B28 had a real thick bass response. So you could hear these. I play the little bass lines for these guys. They can hear me when I'm going to a new chord. So I got this. Something like that, you know. So that's kind of the dreadnought. So there's all sorts of different styles. They have the small bodies like a concert. They make a auditorium side, double O, triple O. You know, don't get me going. I worked at the guitar store for like 10 years. Yeah. People go off on that stuff, you know. It's just a box of wood. Don't have to be expensive.
I guess we can do lots of reading.
Any other questions? You guys have been just a great audience and just well attended. Yes, sir.
I guess what I got a book that you can read us.
You know, I have a cool mountain dulcimer from North Carolina, from Banner Elk. It's actually really fun, and yeah, it's 4-string. 2 of the strings are, they say they're chorused, I believe, and that's where you put 2 of them together at the same pitch, kind of like a 12-string guitar. So 2 are regular, and then the 2 are chorused, and then again you tune that to like an open tuning, kind of like the dobro, and you tune it into modes. What it is another fun instrument because the frets, see these frets? They make it super hard. On the dulcimer, they space the frets to make a major scale. So it's really easy to play. Yeah, diatonic scale. And then it's really easy to play, really. That's why it's so fun. But another like classic Appalachian mountain instrument.
30 minutes.
Excuse me?
30 minutes to learn.
Yeah, 30. They're pretty fun. If you haven't tried a dulcimer, they're kind of fun, and definitely some cool old mountain music on the dulcimer. Great questions. You guys are a hoot.
Hey, you're okay too.
Percussion, where does like spoons and washboards and stuff come in?
That falls into maybe just like the overall mountain music feel. You can have some of that in bluegrass as the percussion, and that kind of, you know, as country music, I believe, crossed over into bluegrass. You did get like the drummer or the snare drummer or the washboard, right, to add that kind of backbeat down-home rhythm. Get your socks cleaned at the same time. You know, so just again, you know, you grab anything around the house to jam on Friday night. You got enough moonshine in you. I don't know, know who came up with that, but it sounds pretty good. Put your thimbles on. You know, that's kind of cool. But like the dulcimer too, you know, a lot of folks that lived there, they didn't have any money. You know, you farmed, you built your cabin. You know, grandma chewed lots of tobacco. You had the dulcimer on the front porch. You know, it's just really like a down-home's way of life. And that's what a lot of the songs and the lyrics reflect. And even the, you know, just the sounds coming from Ireland and Scottish. You know, there's a lot of lonesomeness in that, what they would call the high lonesome bluegrass sound. But yeah, it's good stuff. You guys seem to like that bluegrass. I'm glad it wasn't no bluegrass. I'm glad we didn't play that classic rock song either. That would have ruined it.
The dulcimer fell under the gut bucket style music.
Yeah, gut bucket, kind of mountain style, same kind of stuff. Gut bucket. It's a nice name for music. Well, we sure appreciate it, and thank you to the Deschutes County Library for hosting us, and Tina, thank you so much for having us. We're the Moon Mountain Ramblers. You guys have a great night.